it or leave it. Send them back. Is Trump and the Republicans trying out new slogans for 2020? Ed Blakely is a former Washington insider now living in Sydney, Australia. My name is Sean Britton from the radio station 2SER. Find us wherever you get your podcasts each week at US of Ed, as well as on Facebook and Twitter. Mueller testifies. I didn't anticipate much coming out of this except for a potential press op for Democrats. Mueller has made it quite clear all he's willing to say is really in that report already. So what did you think of this morning, Ed?
He did say one thing that's very important, that the president is not scot-free, and that the information he has, he could be convicted for obstructing justice. So that was very clear. The second thing he made clear is, although he couldn't pin the Republican Party or its campaign as an organized conspiracy, there are individuals who are conspiring with the Russians, some unknowingly, some actually, but there was no general conspiracy. In other words, they're a group of people who couldn't shoot straight, and the Russians were taking advantage of them. I wish he'd made that more clear in the report, but I think he did make it clear in his presentation. And the president was, again, off the mark. I was clearly exonerated. I don't know where this man's going.
Yeah, it's a little bit of nonsense that we've heard from Trump.
Sophistry.
One other just interesting one coming out, though, that the FBI is still currently investigating potential issues of blackmail for members of Trump's circle.
Well, that is true. And, I think it's more than true. I think we all know this by now. And these blackmail allegations, Cohen has confirmed them. And I think it's a matter of what's the timing here? Are we going to wait till Trump gets out of office? And I think New Yorkers want to do that so they can not just prosecute him, but persecute him in the process. But what happens if he wins the election? So one has to be careful about how you use this. I think if he wins the elections, the Democrats will go crazy and they'll come after him and probably throw the kitchen sink after him. And it's possible the Democrats would gain the Senate, and people haven't thought about that.
Well, that would be an intriguing one to see. Just on, the money front, you mentioned, of course, New York there. Worth mentioning, Trump is suing the Ways and Means Committee and the New York Attorney General to keep his tax receipts under wraps. That's still going.
Well, this is a suit that has no merit. And the question is, when is it going to be thrown out? He's playing for time here. If everyone else's tax returns are seen, he has no reason for his not to be seen. And there's plenty of precedent here. All the previous presidents, going all the way back to, I think, Roosevelt or Truman, have provided their tax returns. Why not him?
Trump's latest racism row, it's fascinating to watch his support team keep setting standards lower and lower when it comes to Trump. There's never been any denying Trump is a racist, but the latest, telling a bunch of congresswomen, of course women of colour, to go back to where they came from if they don't love his version of America. One interesting perspective I heard, could he be testing the waters for strategies in 2020?
Well, I probably think now that he's done it, he is. I don't think he thought about it before he did it. But now he's thinking, hey, look, there's some of my people, and some Americans in general, who believe these women have gone too far in their Israeli talk, in their talk about socialism, and in their talk about the democracy. So he's trying to score points. He's trying to get people, hopefully voters, to say, well, maybe I should vote for Trump because at least he's a real American. The women are standing steadfast. They're going to Israel, believe it or not. And I think when they come back from Israel, they may be a little more mellow, and I think that's really a sop to Pelosi, but they're certainly not going to change their tune.
Actually, you mentioned Pelosi, of course. What do these attacks mean for the legitimacy, I guess, you might say, of these women? They're called the Squad, Ilhan Omar, Ocasio-Cortez, the others. Because though I was trying to ignore the news when I was away over the last 3 weeks, One story that got through was that the Democrats were once again arguing amongst themselves. Has Trump's attacks made it harder for the likes of Pelosi and head Dems to push back on these women?
Well, there are two things here. One, they don't want to push back, really. What they want to do is change the rhetoric, but not the message that Trump is a racist. The problem Pelosi has is the way they're doing it, not their goal. And she has to somehow rein that in. But remember, these people represent people who are American citizens, Black Americans, Latino Americans, immigrants, and others who do have these feelings, and they need to be heard.
There are a lot of those people who I imagine would have heard the same thing. And, as we can point out, 3 of the 4 women born in America anyway, I mean, for God's sake.
Well, but Trump's father was born in Germany. Keep that in mind, would you?
Deficits between tax cuts and spending. The U.S. deficit that Republicans were so concerned about under Obama has been rocketing upwards, and the reaction seems to be indifference. What's going on, Ed?
Well, they know they can't do anything with the deficit. And for them to cry now after the tax cuts that they're worried about deficits is really hollow. So what they're trying to do is making, you'd say, lemons out of lemonade, or this time it's mincemeat out of lemonade. They've really crossed the barrier here. This will open them to Democratic attacks come election time, because the deficit is really made up of Trumpisms like expanding the military and so forth when aren't necessary. Trump is making the enemies here. The Defense Department isn't, and we certainly don't want to see any men overseas. So Trump has a problem, and that problem could get worse if the health care thing goes down in the Supreme Court. And you know what that is? That is, if people have to pay any kind of premium or show that they need health insurance, it could be considered a tax. And if it is a tax, the Congress has not voted for a tax. But there are a lot of areas like Medicare and so forth where people pay through their Social Security that has never been called a tax. So what's a tax? Is everything that the federal government charges you for, like a stamp, a tax? It's a user pay. So I think if this does go in the wrong direction, we're going to have a lot of Americans out to deal with Trump in this election and deal with every member of Congress who stands beside him.
Internationally, Iran has captured 2 British tankers they claim were breaking some kind of maritime law, but maybe geared up for a swap. What's going on?
Well, you've got it. They're gearing up for a swap. What they want is the British to come on side with them and loosen those sanctions, and they'll give up the tankers. This is the kind of thing that past rhetoric would say, no deal, no way. We don't know what Boris will do here. He's a little bit shaken by his narrow victory. I mean, it was a comfortable victory, but he doesn't have everyone on side. Furthermore, the British need every bit of support they can get from the United States. So I don't know exactly what this trade will be, but there will be a trade of some kind, oil for ships or something like this. The Iranians better be careful, because the firepower of the U.S. Navy, combined with all the other weaponry, might be unleashed on them, and the American people at this point would say, go ahead.
Meanwhile, the Pakistani Prime Minister Imran Khan has been in Washington, D.C. and in talks with Trump. As seems to be his usual position, Trump appeared to be promising everything and anything immediately after the talks. So what can we see coming from this?
Well, this guy is a cricket player, and I think he had a level bat and was hitting them out of the park. He was getting everything he needed and wanted. But let's be clear here. Pakistan is a dangerous enemy. They have atomic weaponry. They are a backdoor to India. There's a rivalry there that really makes a difference to the whole world. So for Trump to give some soothing words to Pakistan is fine. But if he does more than that, it's very dangerous. The other thing we have here are rebels in Pakistan, some of them ex-ISIS rebels. The Pakistanis have trouble maintaining them. So they're trying to get close to the United States so they can get more arms against their own citizens and these rebels. I don't know how this is going to play out, but Trump loves a dictator.
Just in terms of the play out, some have feared it could be setting the stage for a complete US pullout and a return of Taliban control in Afghanistan. Any feelings on that?
Well, these negotiations are going on. Remember, the United States negotiated to let the Taliban in last time, and they came in, and they basically, the people threw them out, and then the United States had to come to their aid. I think the Taliban are not quite the Taliban they used to be. So I'm not fearing they're coming back as the rulers, but they're certainly going to get some seats in the parliament, and some of the Taliban rhetoric will turn into reality. That's a lot better than what's going on now.
And across the pond, of course, we've got to talk about this one. Boris Johnson, the UK's Trump, now officially in charge as Prime Minister. And as you mentioned before, he's got, Brexit right there on the big table. Thoughts, Ed?
Well, the biggest thought here is what happens with Scotland and Northern Ireland and maybe Wales. It looks like there's a new confederacy starting within the Union that wants to maintain strong relationships with the common market. And they're getting a lot out of it, particularly places like Wales, where the economy is really dour. Nothing's happened for a long time. They have gotten a lot of support through this mechanism to build new downtowns, to improve their economies enormously, bringing in technology and the like. And, of course, the British have been very scared of what's going to happen in Dublin. Dublin could be the new London. And I was talking to a young man from London who works in the finance industry on the plane, and he said he was on his way to Frankfurt, one of their offices, which is expanding. So he doesn't know how it's going to turn out, but obviously Londoners are prepared for exits to Ireland, and of course that would be Northern Ireland would want to join the other island, the back door as they're calling it, and Scotland has already made their voices very clear on this one. So he can get a deal, but if that deal doesn't satisfy those other three parties, I think the UK as we know it is done, a done deal.
Ed and I are officially back after our short hiatus. You can find our previous specials and all earlier episodes wherever you get your podcasts at US of Ed, as well as on Facebook and Twitter. US of Ed is produced in the studios of 2SER in Sydney. Help support the work we do by going to 2SER.com/.